Okay. Good morning. Today is the 8th day of Tevis, the 20th, I believe, of December. And we're going to learn a short piece because Yaakov isn't here until he comes back. Hopefully we'll finish it this week. It's very short, but it's kind of relevant. So it might take some time to get through it. This is as far as I'm able to gather, what happened here was that someone wrote down in the time of the Baal Shem Tov, or a little after the time of the Baal Shem Tov, about the conduct of one of the Baal Shem Tov's Talmidim, one of his students, whose name was Mendel, from the city of Bor. So he's called Mendel Borer. That's his name. Elon Musk would like the name, the Boring Company, probably from the city of Bor. And he had a particular custom that he explained. All the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, or most of them, were on a very, very high level. And so they included it here because the Tzemach Tzedek took this testimony about his conduct, and he explained it in some depth. Not very deep, but we'll see that there's a lot already that Mendel Borer himself explained. I don't know who wrote this. It's clearly he copied it from somewhere, because this was at least 100 years before he was born. Maybe not 100, 80 years before he was born. So he never saw. He didn't know who Mendel Borer was. So Tzemach Tzedek never saw him. Yeah. So. You know what? It could be that he did see him, because I'm doing the math now in my head. It could be. The Baal Shem Tov passed away in 1760. So there's a question about, could he have, maybe it was a very young student, and he made it all the way to the 1800s, and then the Tzemach Tzedek would have seen him. The Tzemach Tzedek, I believe, was born in 1790 something. I don't know exactly when. So maybe he did see him. In any case, so he brought this here and he explained it. It makes sense even that maybe he did see him and he heard this from him and then he wrote it down. But the reason they put it here in Derech Mitzvosecha is in this volume on the mitzvos, on the meaning of the mitzvos, is because it's going to give us a very, very broad view of the topic that we just talked about with tzitzis. How can we know or is it possible to even know the reasoning behind the mitzvos? And he's going to take it in a different direction. We'll see in a moment. But it's the same topic. Is it possible, and how is it possible to know the meaning, the true meaning behind a mitzvah? So he says like this: B'Shem HaRav HaKadosh Reb Mendel Bor, in the name of the holy Rabbi Mendel of Bor, Nishmato Eden. שהיה נוהג את עצמו שלא היה אומר דברי תורה כי אם במקום שנותנים לו נדבה. His custom, and this is the custom that we're talking about, was not to teach, not to come as a preacher, unless they gave him a contribution. A monetary contribution. Meaning, if they asked him on Shabbos, Mendel, nobody prepared the sicha. Are you willing to say a sicha? So he says, no. Either you pay me or I don't. And it wasn't that simple, of course. In his town, I don't know what he did. But when he went to other places, and everybody who knew something at that time would usually make some living off of teaching. It could be that they were teaching young children. It could be that they were teaching adults. It could be they were preaching in a shul, whatever it was. So he wouldn't go unless they gave him a contribution, which is very interesting. Because we have this whole question about, can you even take money for teaching Torah, right? He had this custom that if you don't pay me, I'm not coming. But his explanation is what's important here. V'samach hadavar, and he based his custom on the verse, Shalach teshalach et ha'em ve'et ha'banim tikach lecha. You shall release the mother and the sons, the chicks or the eggs, you shall take for yourself. Meaning, there's a mitzvah that, for what I remember, doesn't appear here in Derech Mitzvosecha, it doesn't deal with it, of shiluach haken, of sending the mother bird off. So, if you come upon a nest that is in a public space, it has to be in a public space, not in your space, not in private space. You come across a nest and there are chicks or eggs in it. You can't take the chicks or the eggs from this kosher bird, whatever kind of, how many kosher birds do you even know? So it was, the truth is, it used to be the opposite, that the Torah only tells us which ones are not kosher. So everything else is kosher. So supposedly there's a lot of kosher birds, but we only eat the ones now that we know by tradition are kosher. We don't say that, because we've lost the tradition about which are which because of the exile. So you find this nest, you can take the eggs or the chicks, as long as you send off the mother bird. Theoretically, and it doesn't tell us why, but theoretically people say this is because of tzar balei chaim, because we have mercy and compassion on the animals, and the mother bird should not see you taking her chicks or eggs. So that was the verse that he based his custom on. And he explained it like this, Perush. Torah mitzvot nikraim banim. It could be this is already Tzemach Tzedek. Maybe the Mendel board didn't even give this explanation. Maybe it's just Tzemach Tzedek now explaining. So he says like this: the Torah and mitzvot that a person does are the children. They're called children. How many children in the nest, by the way? How many chicks in the nest? How many eggs or chicks? So there's a whole Zohar on this. And he says there's six eggs, 6 chicks. Why? Because the mother, so let's start, abstracting this into Kabbalistic language. So in the Zohar, obviously the mother, anytime you say the mother principle, you're talking about Bina, you're talking about the sphere of understanding. And when you talk about the sphere of understanding, you're talking about the second letter of God's name, the Hey. Yud is wisdom, Hey is understanding, Vav is Za, that we talked about, the 6 extremities from loving kindness to foundation. And then the last Hey is Malchus, kingdom. So if you're talking about, if the Torah is mentioning a mother and sons, it's talking about the Hey and Vav. It's talking about the understanding and the 6 extremities. So you know that if there's a mother and it has children, there's always 6 children. Why is there not a 7th child? Why is there not a Malchus also, a girl there? Because in this case it says, V'etabanim tikach lach. It's only the boys. The boys are the 6 extremities, the 6 of God's 3rd letter, Vav. And it says, and here's how it works. Pchinat em hu pchinat asiba. Whenever we say mother principle, it's always associated with cause and effect. Here's a whole slew of connections that I'm going to give now. We call it Mother Nature. Why do we call it Mother Nature? Because nature is supposed to work by cause and effect. Right? The universe works by cause and effect. When God created the world, He created many types of relationships, not just cause and effect. What we call nature is the aspect of God that He created called cause and effect. How do you see that in the word mother itself? Because the word mother, mother can also be read as im, if. And that is the famous if-then clause in every computer language. If this, meaning if this cause, then this effect. So it's called a conditional. Okay? So this is one of the ways in which God runs the world. It's called cause and effect. Not the only way. There's many other ways in which the world functions. One of the problems of science, which is why it's limited, is because it only recognizes cause and effect. It doesn't recognize any other relationships between things, which is okay, because you're looking from that perspective, but don't expect to see everything. Right? If we take, for instance, something that I said to people yesterday, I was surprised that somebody actually said it doesn't make sense to them. What is more complex? The cosmos or the human body? Well, if you say the human body is part of the cosmos, then obviously, with it doesn't mean anything. But I'm taking it aside a second. So there's no comparison. In the cosmos, all you're looking at is inert matter.
Yeah, that's right.
It's only matter, and it's only very simple, relatively very simple laws. You can't expect something as complex as the human body to be that simple. Yeah. It's not. It's even if you're saying it's the same laws somehow, it's much more complex. It's on levels and levels and levels of such more complexity. So you take science and you try to do medicine with science. That doesn't work too well. Reason is because the universe, every time a star has a mass above such and such masses of the sun, it'll become a blue dwarf. It has more, it'll become a white dwarf. There's no shifts there. It's all the same. This is very simple. It's just matter. It's just hydrogen. A lot of hydrogen doing this, doing that. It's as simple as it gets. When you talk about a human body that is so complex, and you try to use laws that are cause and effect, the laws that you know from the cosmos, from matter here, even chemistry, which is still inert matter, and you try to, what we call to reduce, it's called reductionism, reduce everything, the complexity that's happening in the brain and the body to these laws, you're bound to run into problems. So, as I just said, I don't want to get into things controversial, but I'll explain why there is controversy about vaccines, for instance. Because there's no silver bullet in medicine. Medicine is not 100%. There's nothing in medicine that is 100%. There's maybe one thing today, maybe, and even that doesn't always work. You know, they have a treatment for hepatitis. Gideon Pharmaceuticals put it out, and they claim it's 99.9% effective. I know a couple of people who took it. It costs like $100,000. It's not as effective as they say it is, but they claim it is, but it's not. They didn't get rid of their hepatitis completely. One of them got rid of it for a while. It was undetectable for a while, and then after a few years, it became detectable again. So it's not that simple. Hepatitis C. In any case, there's nothing in medicine that can truly be completely cause and effect. The way that we understand cause and effect from the cosmos or from inert matter, it's much too complex. So when you add to that cause and effect is only one of the ways in which God runs the world, it's a very important way, then you understand why the human body, which reflects also the soul, is not just cause and effect. It's much, much more than that. So that's why it's all very complex when it comes to medicine. You get some results, but a lot of times you don't get the results you want. In any case. So he says here, the mother represents cause and effect. Ubchinat em, ubchinat asiba. What is it a cause for? So wait, let's put it in context. So we have 4 letters of God's name. So the one that represents cause and effect is the first Hey. And what do the others represent? Different types of relationships, not necessarily cause and effect. Maybe we'll get into them as we move on with this. We'll see other types of relationship. So the mother is the cause for the children. What are the children? We said the Torah and mitzvos. It's a very interesting thing what he's saying. He's saying Torah and mitzvos, learning Torah, keeping mitzvot, should not be a cause and effect action. There shouldn't be a cause and then an effect. It should be something much bigger. But as we'll see, that in this mitzvah, the Torah is telling us that there is an aspect of it that's limited. Meaning there is an aspect of performing Torah and mitzvos that is dependent on some cause. How does this tie? We're going to end with this, but how does this tie into what we talked about mitzvos, about tzitzis? We said that there has to be a reason behind it. Reason and cause and effect are the same. Because reasoning, logical reasoning, cause and effect, you could say that the type of thinking behind the relationship called cause and effect is reasoning, is rational, logical thought. That's why we call it allopathic medicine. Allopathic, I don't know exactly what it means, but it relates to this thinking that I can analyze things logically. Reductionism is a logical proposition. It makes sense. It's not, if I say the whole complexity of the human body comes from chemical interactions, it makes sense. Okay, there's smaller units, they're called atoms, they're called molecules, they interact in a certain way. That's what causes the complexity called the human body. So it makes some sense. So to say that Torah and mitzvos are dependent on a reason, reason in English is cause, same thing as cause. So it also says it depends on something logical. There's some logical connection between the mitzvah and why I do it. There's some, and that's what we talked about in tzitzis, that we're trying to uncover what is the reasoning behind the mitzvahs, right? So in the tzitzis, what we just finished learning is that the tzitzis gives us an inkling, the threads give us a small taste of this reasoning above for all the mitzvahs, and that's why the tzitzis is compared to all the mitzvahs in the Torah. So we'll end here today.
Would you say the encompassing light is
the what?
The encompassing light,
right,
is related to that?
Right. So the mother principle is like encompassing light, exactly. And the chicks here would be like the threads.
Gotcha.